Hey, welcome, Tanesh, to Bikeside Peace. I hope you're doing well.
I'm doing good. Yeah, I'm doing awesome. Thanks for having me here, man.
Yep. We're very excited to have you because I've noticed a lot of previous founders who've come on our channel, right? They've actually ventured into entrepreneurship after they've done sort of like a job. They first out of college, they do a job like for 2 years, understand the industry, the landscape, etc., and then take the plunge into entrepreneurship. But then, like I noticed, you're very different. You sort of have like entrepreneurship in your blood, you can say, because you started a company with your dad at a very young age, and then you're on to your third startup. So I'm not explaining it. We'd love to hear it from your end. So how did all started? How did you get into entrepreneurship in the first place?
As you mentioned, yeah, I think it was built in the blood. I come from a family which has always been in business for a while, and of course, I used to look at it. The family business was into manufacturing of all these surveillance products, so I always had affinity towards that industry. But also, I was built maybe a little differently, wherein I always wanted to do something on my own rather than just following what was happening in the family. Because sometimes, you know what, like let's just call it out, right? Sometimes you don't fit well into your family business, right? It's better you're doing something on your own, because that just gives you a liberty to make decisions as to how you would want to make it. So I mean, I started off with very simply, right? Of course, when you're 15, 16, when I started off, you don't have any money.
Mhm.
What I did was that I was maybe smart enough to go to my dad. I told him, hey, why don't you give me products on credit and I'll sell it across, and when I come back to you, I'll pay it back to you. So for me, it was a little easier to sort of just set up the stepping stone, because I did not have to invest any of my money to sort of go ahead and start.
Yeah.
But yeah, of course, the time, the effort which you start ground up was immense. So got it, I got a bunch of friends together. I told them that, hey, this is what I want to do, and I think that this can make some good money out of it, and let's just do it. Let's just do it for the fun. Started off with that business, and over a period of the next 2 years, I was his biggest distributor in the country. I was selling, I think, 30% of their production, which these guys were making.
Just to clarify,
And it was just
what sort of product was
so
that?
these were all these surveillance products like CCTV cameras and biometric devices and stuff like that, right? So what I used to do was, these guys to manufacture. What I used to do was, I used to buy it, and I used to have my own integration and service provider team, and then we used to go and install it. So say if you want to get a surveillance system installed at your office or your house, right? We would go ahead and do that. And that experience in itself like gave me a lot, or rather set up a lot of context in terms of the problems an SME or a small business would sort of face in some way or the other. Like, I think that has been the most uh, uh, like, it's been such an experience for me to start off with that as the starting point, because it gave me a lot of contextual understanding of stuff I was doing. But I mean, I started with that, of course, ran that for 2 3 years, and then just because of the nature of that industry, I used to go to China a lot. So, there I used to find a lot of products. I used to talk to a lot of manufacturers. And what I realized was that um, and then I came across this whole drone tech industry, which was very nascent, very new. In India, it was at a very very nascent sort of a stage, and I understood that there would be a huge potential for drone tech, which is even today, and I think the industry is not even opened up as yet. So
Yeah.
this was back in 2016, 17 is when I thought that, hey, we should actually do something. So yeah, brought in industrial grade drones from multiple places, and then here I counted the likes of very high level agencies, who were also sort of a part of my clientele. So Touchwood like had an early sort of hands-on experience in terms of running something small and
Mhm.
just scaling it up eventually, right? Was maybe making more than what a typical 17, 18-year-old kid would sort of be making through. But it was overall, I think it was a stepping stone for me to, and you know how you mentioned, right? Like, people start off with a job. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but like the experience which I got firsthand, I think I made numerous mistakes, right? But I learned with every mistake which I was making in everything which I was doing. So yeah, it was a fun experience to sort of just at that age, luckily to be able to meet such people, understand how business happens at a high level, look and maybe see money. Right? The first thing is that when you're young and nascent, the like money excites you too much, but just the ability to be able to see money so quickly and then also see it vanish in some way or the other is also like a great experience to have. So yeah, I've been through a very floater like of a ride. It's been a roller coaster, ups and downs, but some way or the other was also sort of involved in a few other gigs here and there in the tech space, and then eventually I think took all like confluence of all these ideas, career experiences and stuff like that, and I think built it and shaped into this whole ball, which is our moonshot called as Cyber. So that's how I think the journey has panned out till.
Exciting. So it's been like a good, wholesome experience for you, right? When we were still studying in college, say at 18 or at 21, you're having the side by side, you're having the whole entrepreneurship experience. So you could learn a lot from those, right? A lot of mistakes which first time entrepreneurs make, you already made when you're a student. So I'm sure that definitely helped you in further. So again, coming to your education, you joined NMIMS, but then unfortunately you had to drop out at the end of second year. So what happened there? What really drove you into that decision?
I don't think it was unfortunate. It was fortunate and conscious decision, which I think I had taken. Because I'll tell you what happens is that, see, I'm not pro education, I'm pro knowledge, right? So, I mean, what I realize is that, okay, education sometimes works well for a few folks and sometimes it doesn't, right? I mean, there's no right or wrong answer to how do you pursue academics in general. For me, it was more about once I know I have that contextual knowledge to kind of go ahead and do something, I would like I did not see a sense of wasting another 2 years within my education stance. So rather, I was like, I'd rather, and of course, it was a very conscious decision as well, right? Because I was concurrently working and my work had got to such a level wherein I couldn't, I had to choose either or. Right. So when you go down to that level is when you have to take a very conscious decision. And I was at a stage wherein if it wouldn't have been for me, I don't think that would have fared well. So that was one point. Whether and of course, right, you can always, I think, roll back towards getting your education anytime you want. It might be it might be a bubble in your head, but the point is, if I want to go ahead and then now pursue my and complete across whatever degrees or the namesake degrees, which you call it out, right? It's very easy to sort of go ahead and just do it back again. But at that given point of time, right, just that conscious decision of being able to do something bigger than myself was something which was in my head, and of course I choose that. Yeah, I mean, not everyone would have. I'm sure not everyone would have done that, but for me, that was the most conscious choice which I think I could have taken at that given point of time. So,
fair enough. So just to clarify, you're working on your Fleage, right? At that point of time.
I was working on Fleage. Yeah, I was working on Fleage. A few other things here and there. I mean, I was literally trying to do so many things at once, just because I wanted to understand. Like I knew that I have to kind of settle down on one thing, but I was just trying to do stuff, right, just to sort of understand what's sort of going on, what is not. So where am I good at, where am I bad at? So I was doing a few stuff, but yeah, Fleet majorly, I think it was in progress.
Yeah. So just want to understand when you're doing that, like, did you find say like a co-founders from inside through your friend circle, or you found someone else outside NMIMS? How did that happen?
So yep, as you mentioned about finding the right co-founders or the people you are gonna sort of work with, I would say that your best friend or whosoever, right, who generally is majorly a co-founder, I think that might be a very wrong decision to take because you have a very biased opinion. At the end of the day, when you're sort of forming across a company, you have to think it from a nature that is this person going to be useful or not? And over a period of time, whosoever you're working with, right, you'll actually end up becoming great friends with them. So the point is that while I was going ahead and looking forward to like getting in the right folks, for me it was more about okay, I'll get in. I'll have a very conscious decision about who I want to get in. I'll look at their skill sets. I'll look at their passion, and then I'll probably take across and make across a very conscious decision to who you want to get. So some way or the other, yes, like the whole alumni sort of helped me to sort of get in the right folks in and around us. But yeah, man, I mean, it has been a very tight journey for me to at least find across the right people I want to work with. But in some way or the other, the alumni does sort of help.
Okay.
Like cool. that college connection, of course, helps.
Cool. Okay. Now moving on to what you're working on currently. So you already gone through a lot of experiences, learned a lot of lessons, right? And then how did all these lessons add up to help you when you started Skyber?
I think it's a very interesting sort of a journey to sort of take and have young experiences, because every experience is such a learning, right? And one, maybe an early experience gives you and sets across a divide between facts and reality, between what you're imagining versus the actual realism which is sort of happening. When and you would have seen, right, a bunch of young people trying to do stuff, but after a certain point of time they don't have that grit, even though they have the passion, the grit to actually stay in the game is not there, right? So after a certain point of time, you would have seen that if things are not working well in their favor, people just fall out. So just the ability to kind of just stay in the game is something which you learn, because at the end of the day, that whole founder's grit is something which I am a huge believer of. That even if you as a founder, or even you like a founding team which you're getting right, it's not the good or the great times which defines how a founder behaves. It's the worst of the worst times, right? And we have been in a position wherein fundraising has sometimes been tough. Getting the right product, getting the right team, all of it has been like a very wavery journey. But just the ability to stick around is something which you'll realize, and then being able to come out of it, right, is something which you sort of set across a context. And I think apart from anything else, just that the
persistence, you can
ability
see,
to the persistence is there, right? And also the reality factor is something which is going to be very useful. Just knowing that I'm not living in this bubble, that okay, my idea is something which is going to be like $1 billion startup, which most people have a thought process about. For me, it's not about that, right? The research, the hypothesis, and the actual execution is something which for me is major, right? Our idea could be the best, but ideas are in plenty. Just the ability to know that execution is key is also something which you'll realize over a period of time. Because you might not even have a unique idea. You can just do the same stuff, but if you're doing it better, you're executing it better, I think it makes across a lot of sense. So I think just that all these factors, you realize, you just move out of that bubble, that la la land which you are in, to reality, and that like having such young experiences sort of helps you.
Right. Picking on your last point, which is very interesting, because you say a lot of people have good ideas, a lot of people replicate ideas as well, but at the end of the day, it all matters in your execution, right? Because if you don't execute well, then startup won't materialize.
Exactly.
So so maybe for the benefit of our audience, do you want to explain quickly what Skyber is, and then let's move on to the actual question?
Sure, yeah. So, I mean, Skyber started off with a very simple hypothesis to streamline the way businesses operate in the country. We realized that the between the typical discovery to payments flow for any SME, between any inquiry to an invoice flow, the sheer amount of stakeholders which are involved and how they are all on disintegrated platform systems and interfaces. So, Skyber, I would say, rather than a company, it's more like, when we call it a hypothesis process which we have in our head, that to streamline and bring together all these stakeholders between discovery to payments on one platform. That being said, I think we call ourselves a commerce enablement platform, wherein we want to enable the next few set of the next millions of small SMEs to sort of come digitize, come online, and streamline their processes and flows. And we'll be making across SaaS content, infrastructure, and services for them. That being said, the first thing which we launched out with is something we call as Dhanda, which is our flagship product. Now, Dhanda, of course, is one word, I think, which is synonymous with small businesses and SMEs in the country. So with Dhanda, the whole idea is to become a quintessential platform for this SME, wherein the crux of their organization, their storefront, their inventory, invoicing, etc., is managed by one platform. And it's concurrently also linked to a front end in some sort of a marketplace. So we're working towards that. But yeah, that's in short, that's something which we are thriving towards.
Right. So that sounds like a, what do you call, like a horizontal SaaS, right? Wherein like one
business, in some way or the other.
Yeah, you can onboard a business, and then that businesses will be helped on multiple fronts. Say like, will you help them with filing taxes, accounting, managing their inventory, like help connect with them with future businesses, etc. So is that something new in the Indian space, or do you think there are already existing unicorns or even players in the market you're competing with?
The point is that people have verticalized approach. We say that we have a contrarian approach in terms of building across a horizontal marketplace. SaaS platform is what you could call it, because we are differentiated that we're not a typical SaaS platform. It's like when we are launching out with a few products now, it's just opening up the ecosystem in a whole different spectrum. But I mean, I would say that just to sort of add on to that point, what people think is that they could make vertical and exhaustive vertical platforms, right? Like you would have seen that someone is just building across one suite of product, but trying to just expand it that vertically. But eventually now what would happen is, when you look at it from an SME's perspective, right, that vertical is it's not solving a problem on its own. For him, the actual problem is very huge, right? This whole macro problem of an SME is made up of a lot of micro problems at all and every aspects. Of course, you can't solve all of them, but we picked out that there are a few core problems which are very like integrated in their nature. And if you are able to just pick that and solve that, that gives you much more utility than what just a vertical use case would have sort of given, right? And plus, it's also about registering in the user persona as a horizontal play, because you might think that, hey, build vertically and then try to scale horizontally. How many times do you think that happens? The point is that the user persona in itself has categorized you into that certain vertical, right? So for now, having that ability to go ahead and just spread horizontally just is very low. Like, it can happen, but the point is we don't think that in today's term we have the time to go ahead, build a vertical, and then lay low horizontal. So,
right.
Yeah.
So when you're doing that, so are you targeting SMEs here specifically? Or because if you take a big company, then you're solving a lot of problems for them, right? So are you scaling that level down and then coming and helping businesses in their nascent stage so that you can help?
I'll tell you. Right. So what happens is that, like, when you look at the MSME, right, the point is anyone doing 5 lakh to 250 crores in revenue is an MSME, right? The whole point is that I have actually seen businesses doing 20, 25, 30, 40, 50 crore in revenue, still running the whole Lala way, not having any systems in place, just running it purely on basis of how their Jugadu, traditional Indian business system, used to work, right? So the point is that with my research, I realized there's still about a good chunk, like literally 88 to 90% of businesses in the country not in a position and who've never been interfaced to an online sort of an ecosystem or a flow of things or a seamless sort of a SaaS play also, right? So we realized that there is huge potential there, be it a smaller micro business who might be like the needle might point toward having a app-based system, having a simple app, and versus moving down. If you're a larger sort of an organization, you might need the same sets, maybe a little more comprehensive and on a desktop sort of a tool. So yeah, I mean, we are looking at getting this whole B2B2C sort of a spectrum on board, because like bringing that whole supply chain is actually what goes down to our hypothesis and actually solves a big problem which most people have not realized. But yeah.
Right. So I was reading up on your flagship product, Thanda, and it is pretty interesting because it felt like a sort of a super app, but for B2B, because we have a lot of super apps in the B2C space. But then is Thanda, like, do you envision it as is like a super app for B2B, or is it catering to?
I mean, see, the point is that what happens is that and this is a very contrarian approach as well, right? People say that you should become something for someone before becoming everything for everyone. We're just saying that we are not everything for everyone as a super app, but we are something for everyone. Now that's a little bit of a different approach, in the sense that, like, what is a super app, right? A super app is giving utility to whosoever you want and whatever you want to do. But the point is that, just from an experiential perspective, why super apps have not traditionally worked out well is, the whole problem is that it's too much information for that one person, finding that just one core utility which is sort of needed. So us as a platform, right, be it from a consumer end, you realize if you come in as a consumer, you're just seeing what you as a consumer should see. If coming in as a business, you're just seeing what you're seeing as a business. If you are a third-party aggregator or whosoever who's facilitating something, leveraging our platform, you'll just see your interface. So the point is that, yeah, we are building something wherein it makes sense for a larger mass, but in a very specific experiential perspective, that it is not too much information at once. It is the right information and everything right for that particular user persona or stakeholder. So we're just a little, like, super app wouldn't be the right term, but yeah, even we don't have the right term yet as to how we would sort of like the terminology which we could sort of use for something like this.
Got it. So can you? It's interesting because we have already enterprise SaaS unicorns in India, like maybe Zoho or internationally Stripe, then Chargebee in India. So how did you come across this idea? How did you, like, what is the starting point of Skyber, basically?
Sure. See, the starting point is very, I could say, personal, right? We had a very personal problem, was on the other side of the spectrum, a small business owner myself, understood the small nitty-gritties and the problems which actual businesses face. So the point is that when I realized that, hey, there is still no platform wherein what am I doing as a small business, right? I'm looking after discovery, I'm looking after sales pipeline, I'm managing stuff, I'm looking after my payroll and my employees, I'm looking after my credit, I'm looking after the payments, whether I've received it or not, I'm getting the invoicing done, I'm looking at literally so many things at once, right? So for me, what I realized is that all these problems are actually one big macro problem for this SME, and that is something which needs to be solved for. What I realized, what was already there, right, has been very segmented into stuff, and just that the ability to sort of think, to make a confluence of all these things and simplify that together all into one, was something which was like the core, you could say, the kicker for us to sort of start building, right? So fundamentally, it was, as how I mentioned, right, it is about bringing across all these stakeholders on one platform in some way or the other. But moving down further, of course, you have to break that sort of whole vision down. So yeah, starting point is, let's get across a larger vendor base. Let's ensure that they find some utility, and then built on top of that. But the whole core differentiator for us comes in wherein, you would have seen that SaaS operates in itself as an industry, and marketplaces of commerce happens or operates in itself. When we say we are commerce enablement, it means that we are the core features of commerce, fintech in general, combined with a SaaS play. So that is how it sort of, differentiates us as just a typical SaaS platform being existing and thinking of that, okay, I can sell across a software and make money out of it. Rather, it's a little different than whether when it's mixed with this whole commerce angle of things as well.
Got it. So got it. So can we say, I mean, again, going back to the previous question, because your experiences in other business, in the previous businesses, actually did that like sow the seed of idea of Skyber in a way? Because whatever problems you faced during your initial businesses, you're trying to solve that in Skyber, like essentially.
Yeah, in some way or the other, right? Because I think it was the core problem which came in front of my eyes as an SME myself, right? Hey, what am I doing? How are things going in this way? Wouldn't it just be good if I had a solution to solve for this, right? Very, very personal problem. But of course, it came with, okay, having that personal problem, but also understanding it, talking to so many others and relating it down that, hey, I have this problem. Do you have it? Do you have it? And fortunately, right, I had clients who were SMEs. So, though I was an SME, I was serving other SMEs. So, I had a chance to sort of look at people's models and how they sort of function also very closely, and the ability to ask them questions whether they were facing the same problems or not. And somewhere or the other, like after talking to literally 1,000 people, I realized that, hey, like the core problem for everyone is same. There is a definite need and a want, which is sort of there for two different aspects. And I'll tell you what, like very interestingly, SaaS functions as a need, but commerce functions as a want for people. And that confluence and that ability to just sort of connect these two dots was between that need and the want was something which I wanted to do. And like it happened, yeah, it happened slowly, gradual processes, a lot of research, but some way or the other, we are able to sort of structure across a hypothesis and a fundamental to follow.
Got it. Got it. Also, when you envision this as an enterprise SaaS plus commercially enabled functionalities, so how do you plan to scale up? Say, do you want to grow organic? Do you think there's enough scope to grow organically, or are you looking to raise funds and then scale up?
See, the point is that I'm a huge believer of you being able to build across a very organic, structured dhanda, right? You have to run it as a typical business. But the whole problem is we're in a rat race to sort of go ahead and acquire people. And that's why I think fundraising acts as a catalyst towards your growth. Of course, we're raising funds because of the sheer fact that we have to sort of get to a certain goal faster, and the ability to make a difference should be much quicker in this market, to be able to just ensure that what you're planning for the greater good is happening quickly. And you have to be very quick to sort of and agile to sort of get to that point. But over a larger and a longer vision would always be to sort of build this as a very sustainable business in itself, wherein the fundraising should act as a catalyst towards a growth and not the end mean to for you to just be wanting to raise to be able to grow, right? And that's a very big roadblock to have as a company, even as a startup, right? I think you might be in a very good, as I call it, the La La Land to sort of think that, okay, I'll keep on raising funds and going it. But that's not the point, yeah. The point is that when you're building up actual business, build it as an actual dhanda is what I would just say. Build it as that, okay, maybe it's free for some time. After a certain point of time, you're monetizing it the right way. You have the right monetization strategies. And even if fundraising, imagine, yeah, I've seen companies not being able to raise fund just and having like just a 1 or 2 or 3 month runway, and if they're not able to raise, they're out of business, they can't do anything and they're shut, right? You don't want to be in a position, because if you have a larger, longer vision, you have to build it in a very sustainable sort of a way. And that's a decision which you have taken. Like that's a pure play decision which we were like that we go slow, but we go in the right direction. We pursue it in a proper manner.
Excellent, man. Great answer. Lot of great insights. Thank you so much, man, for the insights. And I wish you and your team achieve. I hope Skyber achieves its full potential. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. And of course, I've been following you guys for a while. Since we had a chat, and you've been doing great stuff. And of course, yeah, this is always fun to be able to meet the right people, talk to them, lay down my vision in some way or the other. I always love to sort of talk about it. And of course, yeah, we're connected. We'll stay in touch.
Cool, man. Great to hear that.
Chalo.
All the best, man. Have a good day.
Thank you so much, man. You too. Yeah.